Once again, I'm your host today for our 5-day masterclass. Kyle, I'm a solution consultant with PriceLabs. You can consider me kind of an expert user, and I love teaching this. I love helping out users to understand the tool. Because if we want our short-term rentals and our midterm rentals to survive and go into the future as a thriving market, we need to be at best at it. We need to be able to use our tools, and we need to make sure that we are really understanding what's going on in our market. My teammate Karishma is with me. I also have another teammate in here named Jenny. She'll be answering some questions as we go through. Looking forward to helping you. So let's just start with a real quick recap. Yesterday, we started with the basics, connecting your account. If you need a refresher, hit Add Reconnect right there. We talked about setting your base price. So if you ever want to come in and check that out, all you got to do is go over here to our Help Me Choose a Base Price. We also talked about setting minimums. We talked about setting our minimum length of stay strategies, which we can dive in a little bit deeper into some of those as well as this masterclass goes on. The video from yesterday, if you didn't receive it in your email, is available on YouTube. We can provide that link for you. So you'll be able to go back and watch that if you have any further questions. If something came up yesterday after our conversation and you want to ask questions about it, feel free. It doesn't have to just pertain to today. If we think it'll help everybody else, I'll try to cover it. And if we can't get to it, then our support team will get to you and make sure that we provide answers for that. So with that, we finished off talking a little bit about the customizations that are inherently working for you. I didn't feel like I got to give them quite enough time, so I do want to look at those a little bit further. So anytime you're looking in here, and once again, keep in mind our customization view may be a little bit different, just because, I work at PriceLabs, so we do some testing and things. This may be a little bit different than what you're used to. If you see this PL default, that means that it is on and it is working, and you can go and check and see what it is that's applying by looking down here in this little area. If you want to change it up in any way, so let's say we're going to, this one is a 33% discount over 32 days. It's essentially 1% off per day. But let's say you want to change it up and do something your own. You can just toggle this on. You have the option of saying, I want a fixed price, meaning like I want it to be $99 if it's within 2 days of booking. Or the better way to use it, in my opinion, would be this gradual one. Let's look at what a percent flat would be. That would be, let's take 10% off starting 2 days out. So that means 2 days out, you're getting a hard 10% taken off. So that means 10% for 2 days out. If you're 1 day out, it's still going to be 10%. If you wanted to flip it over to gradual, that's going to be kind of coming in slowly. So since we have it as 2 days, you would have 5% when you're 2 days out, then 10% when you're 1 day out. If we switch that to within 10 days, you would have 1% applied for each day. So when you're 10 days out, you'd have a 1% discount. When you're 1 day out, you'd have a 10% discount, so on and so forth. So just kind of cross over that way. You have that as the option. You also have no last minute adjustments. So if you wanted to make sure no price drop happened, you could do that and click that. Or you could leave it as the default, which is that market driven price. This view right here where it's turned on and says market driven is the exact same as this where it's turned off. Same for orphan days. It is turned off. You can see we apply 20% discount to 2 nights or less there. You can customize this if you want to. With this, you would hit add, and then you can choose a fixed or a percent change. So you could say, I want it to be this price if it's an orphan day, so on and so forth. Or the way I prefer to work in PriceLabs is with percentages. And let's say, okay, so I want to give a 20% discount if they want to book an orphan day, or if I want to give a discount to orphan days, I want to do 20% if it's a weekday. But if it's a weekend, I'm only going to give a 5% discount, because if I have an orphan day and it's Friday, Saturday, I don't necessarily want to give a huge discount. I want to be able to make maximum money on that. This area right here, I would say for the distance of orphan days. So if I only want to apply this 20% and 5%, if it's a 1 or a 2 or a 3 night, I could do 1, 2, and 3. If I didn't want to apply it to a 4, 5, or 6, I could do that. This right here, we could go into a little bit further, but this is going to be the time frame. So right now, what it's saying between 0 and 9.99 is that this is the rule that happens basically forever. It's in perpetuity. But if I wanted to change it up and drop it and do things differently, I could say, this is my rule when I get within 30 nights of that booking. And then if I'm more than 30 nights out, so let's say between 31 and 999, so now 31 nights out going into perpetuity, I want this to maybe be a 10% discount, or I'm sorry, that's on fixed. Let me change that. Maybe I do a 10% discount on weekdays and only do a 2% discount on weekends for gaps between 1 and 3. So this is how you'd be able to customize that. Once again, if it's toggled off, it doesn't matter what's on in here. It is going to default to whatever it says the currently applied default is. For far out prices, this one is also market driven. It is working right now. So even though it's toggled off, it's working. So you're getting, starting 63 days out, we're increasing 19% until we get to 170 days from today, at which case your rate is always going to be a 19% premium. If you want to customize it, toggle it on. You can say no far out prices. This is really, no far out prices is a customization you may want to use, especially if you have really large properties. You could look at using that. Don't really worry about it right now though. Percent gradual. This would be if you want it to drop slowly. So let's say if I'm 30 days away, so after 30 days, I want to apply a 30% gradual premium, meaning that it's going to slowly build up. So if I only have one day, that means on the 31st day, I'm going exactly to 30%. But let's say if I say over the course of 60 days. So now what's happening is if I'm 30 days out, I am over the next 60 days. So from day 31 to day 90 from now, I'm slowly going to add to a 30% premium. So when I'm at day 90, you'll be at exactly 30%. When I'm at day 60, it's going to be more of like an 18 to 20%. So that is there for you. Remember, if it is toggled off, it is still applying this. If you don't want far out prices, you have to turn this on and hit no far out prices. Occupancy-based adjustments is also toggled on, or I'm sorry, it's toggled off, but it is working for you. This just gives a little bit of extra movement with your rates. So I want to turn this on. You have multiple options. So we are at the default calendar right now. Click there and I'll just kind of show you. So what this is doing is saying if we are between these dates, or if we're between this many days out, so if it's 31 to 60 days from now, and I am less than 10% occupied, we're taking 5% off the rate. Nothing huge, nothing crazy like that. But let's say we're within 2 weeks of the booking and I still don't have anything that's occupied. Now I'm going to be looking at a 15% discount. There's a couple of preset options up here for you. Aggressive can be a really useful one, because aggressive is going to lower your rates really, really well as you get closer, but it's also going to protect you on the other side. So you can see if you have occupancy, it's raising that rate for you as well to make sure that you're kind of staying in line with market and getting as much as you can. Another really good option, if you're in a market and you want to just drop, maybe you don't have the option of raising your rates as the day gets closer, super aggressive discounting can be a good one for you to look at as well. We will cover some more of this stuff in depth. I just wanted to make sure we hit it because I didn't feel like I gave enough time to it yesterday. We'll cover a little bit more of these customizations either later today or going into tomorrow. So I'm going to toggle that one back off. So now you can see it is back at default. I'm going to hit cancel. And now we start with today. Up here, you've got dynamic pricing. This is where you're instantly going to be pulled into when you log in. And that's our pricing dashboard where you see these individual listings and can go in and click individually and things like that. Then you have multi-calendar, which I'll show you in just a moment. That's going to be where you can look at all your properties at once. Manage listings is going to be where you can do a lot of maintenance type stuff really quick. You can upload CSVs. You can change things with drop downs very quickly. I will show you that here shortly as well. And then customizations is where you're going to want to go if you want to set any account or group level customizations, meaning let's say you don't want to do, maybe you don't want to set the same minimum length of stay for Sky's the Limit as is Sally's Field, as is Mountain Thunder Lodge. So you could go in and say, hey, at the account level, I want this rule to happen, and it's going to apply to all of my properties. You'd be able to go there and do that. So with that, let's take a look at the multi-calendar real quick. With your multi-calendar, You also are able to search up here, same as on the pricing dashboard page. But this is an area where you can look at all of it very quickly. There's plenty of little icons you can click up here. I'm going to cover the multi-calendar more in depth, but I do want you to know that from here you can do the same things. So if you wanted to, say you're going in and you're managing your prices, you want to go and change this week for all of them, I can go and select that. Now I've selected all three of those listings. This is what we call a date-specific override. Definitely covering that a little bit more in depth here shortly, but this would be a really easy way for you to go in and make any adjustments there. All right, and then we've got manage listing. So this is what I was talking about where you can really go in and make some moves very quickly. This will be covered more in depth here shortly as well. And then the customizations tab is where you can do those account and group level settings. We won't spend a ton of time here today. This will be more of a tomorrow thing. But what you can do is come in here. So this is my PMS that I have right now. I'm using Logify for this. If I wanted to, I could come set something here that's going to impact all of my units that I have. So with that, let's say you don't have a property management system and you are connecting directly to Airbnb and you're connecting directly to Vrbo within PriceLabs. So it's the same listing, but it's one listing going to Airbnb, one going to Vrbo. We want to help you save a little bit of money. We also want to make sure that there is no way for you to kind of make an error between the two of them or whatever. So what we offer is the ability to map your listings and say, hey, this one is a parent listing. Let's have this parent tell the child what to do. And then with that also you save a little bit because the child listing is not going to be a full listing on PriceLabs. So it costs you about $1 for that. So let's just show that real quick. I don't have this set up because I don't personally have an Airbnb and a Vrbo account. But we're going to pretend. So we're going to hit map listings here from manage listings. You can also, if you're on the multi-calendar, you can hit this little icon right here that says map listings. Or if you are just on the pricing dashboard, you have the same icon, or not the same icon, a similar icon right here. So we can click from any of those spots to do the same thing. For ease, I'm going to do it from the pricing dashboard. So when you click map listings, what it's going to do, this is going to pop up and it's going to say, hey, go ahead and pick your parent listing. So I'm going to pick Sky's the Limit. And hypothetically, we're going to pretend that that Sky's the Limit is my Airbnb listing and I have a Sky's the Limit that is Vrbo. PriceLabs is going to be able to look at the parameters and say, this one could be a child listing. That's going to pop up. You would hit child listing. Then there would be an option that would say copy all settings. That's inherently going to be checked for you. So when you hit map listing, what it would do is take whatever you have on that parent listing, populate your child listing with it, and then have the pricing match completely. Let's say that you wanted to, maybe differentiate it a little bit and maybe charge a little bit more for Vrbo. We can look at setting that up and having what's called a pricing offset. So basically what it would be is after the price calculation happens, let's say Airbnb is $100 a night, Vrbo is $100 also, but you want it to be $110. You can use that pricing offset, which we will cover more tomorrow, to make that happen. So it's kind of difficult for me to show the map listings with me not having Airbnb and Vrbo, but I think that this is a simple enough process that you should be able to figure it out. If you have any issues, if for some reason the child listing's not showing up, please reach out to support at pricelabs.co and we'll be able to help you with that. Thinking about some other use cases and all of that for map listings. If you grow and you end up, let's say you end up with 20 or something properties, maybe you end up getting an apartment complex that has 5 rooms that are the exact same. If you have them and they're on the same same PMS or on the same OTA, we also have something that's called combined listings. We would be able to map you within the same PMS and also be able to look at listings in a combined way. If you have properties, or if that sounds like it's something that applies to you, maybe you have 4 listings that are the exact same in an apartment complex. You never change the prices. They're always the same. Think about how a hotel room is run. that is something that you could reach out to support for and have us on the back end turn it on for you. You are not inherently allowed to just map things within the same PMS, but if that's something that would work for you, reach out to support and they will get that turned on for you. And I think this is a great question is how do I know how PriceLabs is calculating my rate? So what I want us to do is look from the pricing dashboard and keep in mind you can do it from the multi-calendar as well. So we're going to keep with Chicago Sky City. And if you want to know how this rate's coming up right here. So why is PriceLabs saying $88? All you got to do is hover over that 88 and it'll pull up this little graph for you. This graph is really, really useful. I'm going to take a little bit of time. I don't want to, bore you all or anything with it, but we're going to look at it from top to bottom. There's one thing that's missing in this because I'm not booked out. If you are booked, you will see up in the very top left in that gray area, it will say what your average daily rate is and the date of booking that you have. You can see that we have DNC 2024 highlighted up there. That is the event that we've picked up that is kind of drawing the attention to this area. So once we get past that DNC 2024, you see our date, August 21st. The demand in the area is normal, we say. So we're right around 60% occupancy right now. With us being so close to this date, it's like, hey, let's start bringing this stuff down. With this property, you've got a $129 base price. That was determined by me. We did that yesterday. Going in, that was a recommendation. So starting with that base price, we now look at seasonally how the Chicago area performs. It's nothing crazy, but this is a better season for visiting. You get a lot of conferences and things like that. So you can see we still have a plus 10% added to that. So that 129 now becomes $142. That would be, if we stopped at seasonality, your rate would be $142. After that, we add our demand factor. So we're looking at, hey, are there still people that are trying to come during this time period? So there's not a ton, but you got a little bit of a bump. So we add 6% more to get that rate up to $151. So if we didn't have any last minute pricing, if we didn't have any customizations, the rate for this day would be $151. Most likely going to be a little too high. So now we look at this pricing customizations area. You see the last minute price factor, that 33% that goes down over 32 days. We've hit 32% on that, so it brings us down to 103. Then our occupancy-based adjustment, because unfortunately this property is performing terribly, aka Kyle's not putting anything into the system. Occupancy-based adjustments down 15%. So we now have a customized price of $88. Once we get past that customized price, we have our safety thresholds because I don't have a minimum price and I don't have a maximum price set. You can see that minimum price for safety reasons is going to be $39. If my rate had gone below that $39, we would come back up. Let's say I have a minimum price set on this listing of $100. Once we get to that customized price of $88 and it looks at the minimum price, it says, hey, minimum price should be 100. 88 is now going to bump back up to 100 because we can't go below that threshold. Then you can see the maximum, make sure we fall in there. And then towards the bottom, you can see if there's any other type of a customization that we have. With this one, we have a one night weekday last minute minimum stay. So that is identified for you. You can also see how your rate has changed over time. The last seen price, meaning what we last sent to Airbnb, was $87. Makes a ton of sense. We've gone up $1, nothing crazy. Looking at it as something that is coming up right now can show you, maybe it's not as understandable. So what we're going to do is let's look over into October. And I'm going to hit up this $325 day because it looks like it's got good demand. So if we're looking up here, we are now further into our calendar. We're on October 11th, picking up on Columbus Day. I'm sure there's probably some other type of event that's drawing that as well. Our occupancy is at 52% right now, which compared to the 60% that is 2 days from now is pretty good demand. You still have 2 months to get 8% compared to what we just looked at. So when we look at October seasonally, it's like, hey, October just is. So we're not adding anything for October, but then you see that demand factor. So it is busy right now. We're picking up that the market is really advanced. So we're adding 151% demand factor to bring that $129 base price up to 325. So you can just kind of see a little bit of it. If we look down here at the bottom where you have your minimum stay, other customizations, we are currently at a 3-night minimum stay because it's a weekend and it's our default pricing instead of our last minute, or I'm sorry, our default minimum length of stay instead of our last minute length of stay. You can also see your last seen price was 322 instead of $1 difference. You've got a $3 difference a little bit further out. So there is always that little bit of movement. Uh, One other thing that we've got on here, you've got all of these little indicators and everything. So we're going to spend a quick second looking at this. Low demand is going to be this lighter green that you see. And what that indicates is that this date has the lowest demand out of the dates surrounding it. So this 7th is the lowest demand day, or the lowest demand Monday between the 30th, the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st. Kind of the same with this Tuesday. It would be one of those that's more in low demand. Now, when we get to this darker green, you can see it is normal demand. So when we look over here at our 9th, see how that price is at 142. This one's at 108, 109, 103. This one is at normal demand because there's more people wanting to stay on this Wednesday than there were here, here, or here. Had these not already been booked out, you would see this one is light green, this one is light green, this one is light green also. So now let's look at the good demand. Keep in mind, this is going to indicate that we've got some good demand, but it's not necessarily the best time period for this in comparison. So right here, 159, it's good demand. You're about 13% right now. But if this one or this one were still available, you would see that those would have the dark blue because they are the most in demand Saturdays on this particular calendar. Um, so high demand indicates that it's really, really, really high demand compared to the similar dates surrounding it. Low demand indicates that these are the least valuable days for you on the calendar. If it is gray, how we see it here, that means it's unavailable. If it's just gray, then that means you probably have a block or an owner stay or a maintenance block or something like that in there. What this key right here indicates is that that is going to be your check-in day. So we can see right here, check-in day, date has a booking, and it's also the very first date of it. So this is when they check in. Then we can see with these black boxes that it's a stay. Somebody has actually paid for these all the way up until the 25th. So this stay is from the 12th, that check-in, to the 25th with that one. Then let's say we have something that's unbookable. This is not something that you'll see on mine, but let's say we wanted to do, I'll make it look this way. I'm going to put this, I'm going to do a daily or a date specific override. We're going to cover this a little bit more depth here in about 10 minutes. But I'm going to say I want this to be a minimum stay of 10 nights. Once I hit save and refresh, you should see that little icon pop up. Yep, you see that exclamation icon because what it's doing is saying we can't do this now. So it's unavailable and it's unbookable because of some type of constraint. Come in here and hit that trash can to get rid of that. So anytime you see the pink star, that's an event that we're picking up on. Chicago has a ton of events listed. This one we've got is college football. This one's Columbus Day. This one's going to be college football. That one's Chicago Marathon. So that indicates that we're picking up on something. Anytime you see the moon, that indicates that that is your minimum length of stay. And anytime you see this in the top right corner, that's going to be an override. So if I come over here and say, I want my price to be $450, I'm going to hit add. Once that comes up, I hit save and refresh. You will see that little black thing telling me that I've got something in there. That also indicates that you've got this bar. So anywhere you see that black bar is going to mean that it's a date specific override. All right. So talking about the events and holidays, we kind of covered this just a little bit yesterday, but heading into it now, anytime you see these pink icons, that's going to indicate that there is a event of some sort that's moving demand, and that's that we're picking up on that. If you wanted to see a list of everything, all you got to do is come over here to your events and holidays, and you'll be able to see those. So for August 21st, we've got the DNC. August 23rd, we've got Miss Pink has a concert. August 30th, I'm assuming is going to be Northwestern football. Labor Day, all that good stuff. You got Riot Fest, Chicago Marathon, Billie Eilish, who is much shorter than I thought she would be. I took my daughter to a wax museum a few weeks ago, and her wax character is very tiny. I was surprised by that. Um, got Cinco de Mayo down here. So you can come in here and look and see what is going on and if there's anything that you've done with it. So let's say you wanted to come in here. You can see right here, I have a date specific override for this day saying that this is what I want the price to be. If you wanted to come in, I could look and say, okay, for Cinco de Mayo, it's at 2:05. So May 2nd of 2025. I'm going to go to May of 2025. And just for fun, I'm going to put an override in here that says I want $600 a night. I hit add. I'm going to refresh. You don't always have to refresh. That's just kind of a habit I have of doing it. Now, when I come over and view this, and I go down here and look at Cinco de Mayo, I can see I now have a date specific override, and it is for $600 flat. That's what I want for it. So I've got that. You can also come in and like see how this one doesn't have a date. Maybe you know what it is. Maybe this is the NFL draft, or maybe it's, a big Chicago Cubs game or something like that. You can come in and add feedback and let us know what it is. The same time, you can add feedback even if you don't see it in here. So let's say you are in a market where you know some type of concert event that isn't really popular nationally, but it's super popular regionally. One thing to think about in the Chattanooga area of Tennessee, there's a concert lineup that's called the Caverns. Not a lot of people know about it, but that's one of those things. If you're in that area and you can get ahead of it and go ahead and protect it, it's an incredible piece of what's the word I'm looking for? It's incredibly helpful for you. And with this ad feedback, you get to help other customers in your market as well. And other PriceLabs customers in your market as well by identifying these things and kind of getting ahead of the rest of the market. So that it gives us a really good lead into question number 3, which is, can I and how do I change my prices or change my minimum length of stay specific for specific days? So we're going to look at now the date specific overrides and kind of how you can pull these off. I'm going to, for the sake of this, we're just going to stay in our sky's the limit unit. But at the multi-calendar level, everything that I'm going to show you here will be able to be done as well. So if you wanted to just apply something at Sally's Field, all you'd have to do is click and drag here. If you wanted to apply it elsewhere, you can grab a bunch of them like this. You also have the option of just clicking over here if you prefer that, and then you can come over and hit apply override. So you've got that option if you want to do it to multiple of them at once, but we're going to stick with just one property at this time. So let's say we're looking at all this. I've done a $600 override here because I want to protect it. Let's think about maybe this one. So Memorial Day, I'm going to project, I'm looking at it and these rates just, they're not doing it for me. Maybe they're a little too low for me, or maybe I know that I've been able to get $500 before. So I can come over here and say on this 23rd, 24th, and 25th, let's change some stuff up. We've got a couple of options of how you want to do it. One thing I do want to point out, anytime you select, so let's say we take just the 23rd. If you look down here, you'll see you've got an ADR calculation and a total amount. That can help you determine what you want to do with these. So 315 makes sense because it's just one day. But if I'm looking here, select these. Now I can look and I can see my well, I can't really see it because I've got a pop-up thing, but ADR is 302.67. My total amount's 908. Maybe I'm looking at that and say, I want my total amount to be $1,000. So let me figure out how to get it there. I could do something like, I want my fixed price to be $333 for all 3 of these days. Basically, what that's going to do is get you close to that 1,000. You'll be at $999. You could do it that way if you wanted to. You also have the option, instead of saying, I want my price to be exactly this number, You come in here and do percent change on recommended price. So after PriceLabs does all of the calculating and everything for you, if you wanted to take an additional percentage off or add an additional percentage, you would use this right here. So let's say for this one, I want all of my rates to go up 50% off whatever PriceLabs is suggesting. I'm way out. 50% is a huge number, but let's just say this is what we want to do. Come in, I'll hit add, and it'll pop up. So you see we got a 50% change on recommended price. One thing I did not do, you have the option here, update and refresh. I'll hit that real quick so we see it refreshed. And it did not take me back to May, so I'm probably not going to do the refresh thing again. But you can see now we have a 50% change on recommended. Those rates are much higher now. When we look at the calculation and we go to price customization, so if we look at that area, you've got the far out premium of a 20% increase, then I have my date override as 50% increase. Let's say I don't necessarily want to do something that high, or let's say I know, we could do, minus 10% if we wanted to there. You can also specify if you want to change your maximums and minimums. So maybe I do this 50% increase to get it up high, but I say, hey, I don't want to book it out for more than $400 because if it's more than 400, they're probably going to complain. You could set it as I want my fixed maximum price here as well for a date specific. Same thing with your minimums. Maybe you want to do a 50% decrease, but you don't want it to go below $110 because you don't want, the frat down the street to come rent it out and have a great party or whatever. You could come in and set these as fixed as well. You can also use percent change on minimum price and percent change on base price. I would ignore percent change on base price 100%. There's so few use cases. Please, if you're going to switch this over to percent change, make sure you use percent change on minimum price. What this is going to do, if I say take 10% off of my minimum price, I don't have one set. Let's hypothetically say that it was $100. Now my minimum price for this would be $90. If I did this one, we're not going to worry about it. You would be taking 10% off of that 129 instead. Just avoid this one. It's got very few use cases, and most of them are going to be for really large property managers. Same with maximum price. You don't necessarily want to do the percent change on your base price. You want to do the percent change on maximum price if you do. So this one, you could say I want to be 10% lower than whatever I have as my maximum, or 10% higher if I wanted to do that. Let's say right now what I had on there, I saw it before we got on here. I have a 4-night minimum length of stay. Let's say just for these, I want it to be 3-night. Come in and say 3-night. That's all you've got to do with there. And you can see can be overridden by orphan day customization. So if you have this as a 3-night stay and all of a sudden your calendar gets filled up and you're left with 2 nights, as long as you have that orphan gap setting set up, it will drop for you. It's not going to just hold it at 3 nights for you. If you wanted to be a note taker, you've got a place to put this. So give me money is what I'm going to put just for fun. And then down here, you've got a few other options as well. So on this advanced override settings, let's say you are looking at an entire month. So I'm going to look at, instead of us looking at that Cinco de Mayo, let's look at May. And I'm saying, you know what, May from last year, I couldn't get anybody in there on a Monday or a Tuesday. So I want this 50% rule to apply only on Monday and Tuesdays between May 1st and May 31st. So what I do now, click the days that I want, Monday, Tuesday. I'll hit update, and we will see on here, Monday, Tuesday now gets these overrides. So you've got a 50% there, 50% there, 50% there, 50% there. The rest of the calendar is perfectly fine. Nothing else is touched with it. I'm going to click back in here. Let's say I want to delete it from one of the weeks. I'll just come over here, hit my trash can, and it's gone. So now I want to come over here and let's look at a little bit more override. Let's say I really like that I've done that for Monday, Tuesday, and I want to now apply this to November as well. November 2024. So right now I'm saying I want November 1st through November 30th to get the same setting, but I need it on Monday, Tuesday. So Monday, Tuesday, between November 1st and November 30th, hit update. Now, when we go back to November of 2024, you'll see you have that 50% off, 50% off, 50% off, 50% off only on your Mondays and Tuesdays. And the last part down here that you've got is an expiration if you wanted that. I would say expirations are best used when you have date specific overrides that are increases, but you can use it for decreases too. So let's say you want to have, like, going back to what we were talking about with Cinco de Mayo, I want it to be a 50% increase on my rates, and I want a 3 night minimum length of stay, but I want it to fall off and go back to doing its normal pricing if I get within a month and it hasn't been booked. So now I can hit update. As soon as we start getting within that time period, that 30 days, this will start falling off and it will default back over to where we were before. All right, so that is a ton. One thing that is a really good talking point when it comes to the date specific overrides too, if at all possible, you want to observe when you're having to do them, and try to identify the patterns as best as you can, because you don't want to have to do too many date specific overrides. Generally speaking, you will be able to adjust either the base price or some type of customization to help you do this type of stuff. So let's say this is the pattern that you are going on and you're having to go in and you're going in on every Monday and Tuesday and you're saying 50% down, 50% down, 50% down. Well, there's going to be a customization that allows you to do that as well, so that you don't have to do it every so often. So try your best to avoid doing that date specific override too much. If you find yourself doing it in a very similar pattern, like you get in there and you're just not getting anything booked for the next 7 days and you're having to go in and hammer your rates down low, maybe we could adjust your last minute pricing or something like that. There's always something else you could probably do if you're having to do it too much. So let's just try to avoid that. And then we've talked about it at the multi-calendar, kind of the same thing. You just click and drag. It looks the exact same as what we just saw. All right, so we're looking over here now, and I've got my Sky's the Limit. I've got Sally's Field. I've got Mountain Thunder Lodge, which if you're ever in Breckenridge, Colorado, Mountain Thunder Lodge is a fantastic complex. I put it in there so that I keep it in my memory. But let's say I've got this dummy listing 11 down here. I've connected my PMS, or I've connected my Airbnb or my Vrbo, and I don't want to price one of these properties within PriceLabs. So you've brought stuff in, and maybe you don't want to use it. You can hide them. You can also delete them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at where you would go for that. So you've connected, you've got 3 properties that you want to keep and one of them that you don't. It's going to be that dummy listing 11. We're going to go from dynamic pricing to manage listings, where it says edit, map, and delete listings. Instead of me clicking and losing this, I'm just going to open up the tab that I have. So here at Manage Listings, you've got a whole plethora of stuff that you can do. Search if you need to. So if I wanted to look for dummy, I've got plenty of dummies in here, but I could look for dummy listing 11. Now that pulls up that one that we saw. Probably type in listing 11 and get that. Yep. See, I could probably type in 11 and get that too, but it's a little bit harder because it's picking up on ones in here and such as well. So with that, I've got Sky's the Limit, Sally's Field, Mountain Thunder Lodge. Now I have dummy listing 1. We didn't see that before. We didn't see Legacy Demo. We didn't see Columbus 4-bedroom. And the reason we didn't see that, if you scroll a little bit further to the right, or if your computer's not as zoomed in as mine is, it should be on one scene, you can see that I have hidden those. So this eyeball right here on the right side allows you to hide it from your view. You're going to keep all of the data in there. It's going to help you out. If you have properties that maybe they're under construction, you could come in and hide it. Or you have a property that, maybe you lost and you're trying to bring back into your portfolio, you could hide it and keep it in there. If you want to get rid of it for good in PriceLabs, you can hit the trash can. And I should step back on that. You won't necessarily delete it for good if it's still available in your PMS or on your OTA. So if you're connected with Airbnb and you still have, like, you've got this dummy listing 1 as active on Airbnb. When you connect to Airbnb, it's going to bring it in. If you hit delete here and it stays active on Airbnb, the next time you sync back to PriceLabs to Airbnb, it's going to pull that back in. So generally speaking, I'm a fan of hiding. Um, if you want to delete, you can, but that's what you do. So what I want to do is get rid of that dummy listing 11, which we can see is still available here. All I'm going to do is hit that. Now, when I go to multi-calendar, I'll hit my refresh button, and we should not see dummy listing 11 anymore. So now all I see, sky's the limit. Sally's Field, Mountain Thunder Lodge. Same here. I have not hit refresh yet, but I'm going to go back. Hopefully. So dummy listing 11 is still here because I have not refreshed the screen. Hit refresh, and dummy listing 11 should be long gone. All right. Next question that we had is how often should you be checking PriceLabs, reviewing and updating settings? It's kind of, you don't want to play too much, especially at the beginning. You want to kind of let the algorithm be able to do a little bit of lifting and a little bit of research, so to speak. You want it to be able to understand what's happening without you changing your base price a whole bunch or adding this customization on and all those things. One other really, really important tip, don't turn it on just because it's there. When we get to customizations tomorrow, I'm going to really, really emphasize that. Most of them are not needed. They're used in use cases. All of them have good use cases, but most of them are not needed. And if you turn multiple things on at once, one, you could create some issues. Two, if you do change things, like if you change two settings at once, you don't really know which one was the impactful move. So there's a lot of testing that's going to be done if you want to be a really good revenue manager. And the best thing you can do is kind of take your time and say, okay, well, let me try adjusting this setting. That one didn't really work. Let me couple it with this and try it with this setting too. So thinking about how often you should be in here, I personally would not, if I had less than 10 units, I would probably come in once a week, either on a Monday or on a Friday. If you've got a large portfolio, you want to be in there a little bit more. But generally speaking, the way I would approach it is Monday, review your previous weekend, see how things worked. If you had some good bookings come in, look for any patterns that may have happened in bookings. You know, if you've got a property that's getting booked 6 months out in advance, that's probably an indicator we need to go look at something and change it up a little bit. But I would spend Monday looking at your results and the things that have happened, maybe planning out for what it is that you're wanting to achieve the rest of the week. And then by Friday, like I would spend Friday just kind of going in and looking and saying, okay, we're coming up to this weekend. Let's make sure my weekend's good. Let's go ahead and make any changes we have. But you shouldn't spend legitimately any more than an hour or so in PriceLabs. Once you get that initial setup, an hour would be good for you to spend in there a week. And I wouldn't be in there every day if you don't need to, unless you just really, really want to go and get that 100% occupancy and keep playing, keep bringing it down. That would be my suggestion there. So, question number 6 is, what key areas should I check during each login to help ensure my pricing and settings are optimal? This is a fantastic question, and to answer that, we are going to go back to the pricing dashboard, and we're going to start looking here. So right now we've got the initial setup. I believe I've corrected these. When you initially sign up with PriceLabs, if you've not adjusted the metrics at all, you're going to have total occupancy next 7 days, total occupancy next 30 days, total occupancy next 60 days. And I do want to apologize a little bit. I've run a little bit longer than I expected. We were going to dive into neighborhood data and looking at competitors and things like that to wrap up today, but I'm going to push that over to tomorrow just to kind of save some time. So when we get over here, you've got total occupancy next 7, next 30, next 60. I would suggest coming in and adjusting these. These are good metrics to kind of see, but we've got much better ones. So if you will, you can hit add metrics right here. If you're looking from the multi-calendar, prefer to look at the multi-calendar, you can also do the add metrics button here. I'm going to stick with the pricing dashboard though, and I'm going to change them up. Instead of moving these, let's just look at what's available. So starting up top, you've got total occupancy. This one is, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, but if you need to know what occupancy is, it's going to be there. Blocks are considered a part of bookings in our calculation with total occupancy. If you want to look in the past, you can. If you want to look forward, you can. Um, I would prefer personally to use adjusted occupancy as we look at that. That says that blocks are not considered as bookings. So think of adjusted occupancy. If you have 30 days that are available and 15 of them are booked, then your occupancy is going to be 50%. But let's say out of those 30, 10 of them were blocked for maintenance. So now you really only have 20 days of occupancy. So you got 15 days out of your 20. Your adjusted occupancy is going to be, oh man, I should have done the math in my head. I'm thinking 75%, but it's been a long day. So you get the difference with the occupancies. Again, you can look at those year to date. Any of these in the past you can. I always like to look forward, less so on what's happened. Total revenue can help you if you really want to see where you're at revenue wise. RevPAR, if you're not familiar with this metric, it is revenue per available room or revenue per available night. In the short-term rental space, you could consider revenue per available night at a property. Um, so that's a really good metric for you. ADR is average daily rate. Um, Good one to kind of keep your eye on. If you are in low season or if you have properties that are a little bit more on the economic side, I really like this minimum price hitting days metric because what it does is it tells you, hey, your rates are already bottoming out. There's probably not a chance for you to get booked right now. If that's the case, you can look in and say, okay, well, I know I need to go below this because I'm not getting booked. It can help you out a lot when it comes to Airbnb and Vrbo's algorithm as well. Because if your rates are static and you're not going down any further and the market's dictating that it needs to go further, then you're going to lose priority in their algorithms. This can help you identify it. I'm not going to cover recommended base price to base price ratio right now. I hope to get that on the 5th. It's a little bit more confusing. Last book date is one that I absolutely would have on here. That tells you, hey, this was literally last booked such and such. If you want to come in, on that Monday and look and say, hey, I'm starting with the one that was booked the furthest away from today because I need to make sure that it's still active, it's still getting bookings. You're not getting hurt on those algorithms and things like that. Nights booked and bookings pickup are basically the same thing, except one is for the nights, one's for the total number of bookings. I would definitely suggest picking one of those. I probably would go with bookings if I'm in peak season and go with nights if I'm in low season. Just my own perspective. Market penetration index is by far my favorite metric. Don't want to spend a ton of time on it. I could geek out over it, but basically it's your occupancy divided by the market's occupancy. So instead of looking at figures like this 20% versus 50, 35 versus 40, you get a number. And if it's a 1, that means that you're parallel with the market. You're pretty good. You don't have too much to change. If you're pushing more towards a 2, you are almost double occupancy for the market. So there could be something that you could do. You could make more money, maybe raise base price, maybe change your minimum length of stay. It indicates that you could make more money. If you're below a 1, and let's say you're at like a 0.5 or a 0.4, that means you're about halfway to where the market's at. You need to do something either with your minimum length of stay or your pricing. And generally that means bringing it down. So I love market penetration index. There is context with it. If you get long-term bookings, and by long-term, let's say more than 14 nights, keep that context in mind because your market penetration index will always be high if you're converting longer bookings than the market. Let's say you're in a market like Nashville, Tennessee, where it is super, super heavy on weekends. And I mean, you just got to fight to get something on weekdays. You can look at your weekend occupancy or your weekday occupancy if you want to, either by total or adjusted occupancy there. So yeah, let's take a look. I'm going to do last book date as a new metric, and I'm going to let's do market penetration index. And I like looking at that over the next 30 days. And I'm going to move these up top so we can, well, I thought I was going to. I'll move them up top so we can see them quick. So now I can hit update changes. This will re-update for me. Now I can see I've got my last information in here. My last book date was August 19th because I went and put a whole bunch of fake reservations in. I have not put a reservation in Knoxville since October 9th. So if this were a booking, it'd be like, hey, we need to go do something with this quickly. Market penetration index. Once again, this one's the only one that has active bookings. What this indicates is that I am 4/10 of the way to the market when it comes to occupancy. So I need to do something. It either means bring my rates down or give myself a shorter minimum length of stay, hopefully to get people in there. That's kind of how you would use that one. All right. So as I said, we were going to hop in and talk about the neighborhood data and talk about competitors and things like that. I'm going to start tomorrow that way. It's at 2:58 right now, Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to spend some time answering some questions now. If you don't mind, if you have any questions that you want to hit or you want me to hit, please go ahead and submit them in the next 20 seconds or so, and then we will start looking at them. I'm going to end the screen
Yes,
share.
we will be
Hey,
able to take just one or two questions, but if you have your questions in the Q&A box, you'll definitely receive an email from us with answers to your questions. We tried to answer as many as we could on chat, but we will definitely get back to you with answers for all the questions that are in the Q&A box. So
absolutely.
please just add your questions there and you'll receive an email from us.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, yeah, let's spend just a few minutes on here. I'm gonna flick through here and I'm gonna start at the top. Pierre says he's slow, so push some questions before him. Ha ha ha. Ha. I like Pierre. You're my guy. Donald says, based on area, can you set up a default setting for all of these options that would give the best results for occupancy for high, medium, and low rates? I think the answer to that with default settings is it's going to be very, very difficult. You need a little bit of human control in there to say, hey, let's move these around. There are a lot of the settings, like if we went super aggressive on occupancy based adjustments, and then as we talk about demand factor, you get aggressive with demand factor. That could help you a lot with automation and not having to be involved as much. But you need a little bit of market knowledge in conjunction with the tool to really, really get the best results. Uh, da, da. Okay, Oriana says, how do you customize the minimum stay at one night in Chicago with the regulations? Well, that's one of those things that you have control with PriceLabs. We're not going to put those regulations in on you because we don't really know exactly every detail of it. Things are changing so frequently right now. Really, all we do as the software is give you the platform. And if you're the one that chooses to go to one night and it's not legal, it's kind of on you, so to speak. But that is something that I think that needs to be discussed, and we'll bring to our team to see if there's anything, regulation wise that could kind of help with that. All right. Here we go. Colin has a beautiful question. Can I set a minimum booking price? For example, can I set my minimum as 100 a night? So if it's super low demand, a 2-night booking would be $200, but also set a minimum booking price of say 150. So if someone books a 1-night stay on a low demand day, that they can't rent it for 100. So that the one night would be 150. The answer to that is yes. And we will cover that a little bit more when we look at our customizations. On your minimum stay settings, you can use what's called booking value. So how we have that little drop down or whatever, and you have a fixed amount or a percentage. There's one for booking value. So you could say, I don't want a booking in there unless it is at least this amount. And you could pull that off that way. So like with that 150, I would say we would set your booking value as 150 and then go off of that from there. All right, let's see. Okay, Monica says, I just had to do an override of 65% because my prices were way too high on the high demand days and we're not going to get booked. If you see something that is like that, my first reaction would be, let's take a look at your base price. But with this being a very specific situation, Monica, if you would reach out to support at pricelabs.co and have one of our product specialists take a look at this, There's always a chance we could be doing something wrong with it, but most likely there's a little bit of, we could direct you into a way of getting that corrected so you don't have to make something quite as big. Da, 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 da. Keep looking at this. Oh, Karishma, you're asking me so many questions. It's confusing me. I'm joking because of the people that are logged in as you. Uh, can you run through day of week pricing customizations? Melissa asked. Yes, but unfortunately, I'll need to go ahead and do that tomorrow. So we will handle that one tomorrow. Da, da, da. Greg asked, can we explain the expected impact of events drop down on events? That's one that I'm not going to answer live. I do think that that's a really good question, so hopefully we'll get to that and get an answer. If I do have the answer for you tomorrow, I'll present that over here. Let's see. I removed this custom seasonal profile because I wanted to use price change percentage, but that didn't work at all. That was Krista. Krista, because this is specific to your account, um, if you can reach out to support at pricelabs.co, we have a team of people ready to answer your all's questions if you have anything come on. Um, right. Is there a way to keep a one night stay price high, but a larger discount for booking 2 to 3 days? Like his example of 50% off for Monday, Tuesday in the week of Cinco de Mayo, but not offering a night that low for just 1 day bookings. Lauren, there is, but it really depends on, we have it built out on our side. It's called length of stay pricing adjustments. Depending on the property management system you use, some of them allow us to send this information, some of them don't. So it really depends on which system you're using. If you want to reach out to support and let us know which one, we'll direct you on how to best pull that off for you. Mark, I thank you for the kind words. Do appreciate you. Uh, well, to do a date range from December to January. Krista is asking, assuming functionality just doesn't work well to do a date range from December to January. So I think this goes with the previous question that she had asked. That is correct. In the seasonal profile, right now, the way it is set up, you have to run it from January 1st to December 31st. Let's say you had a Christmas calendar. You would need to do that. Let's say it ran from December 31st, or I'm sorry, December 21st to January 5th. You would need to put that in as January 1st through January 5th, and then December 21st through December 31st. You would have them as the same. This is something that we are working on, and within the next, I would say within the next month and a half, that will be able to be used as either in that sense or based off of the year as well. Let's see, I'm going to hit a couple more. Monica asked, can you add different metrics to show for different properties? You cannot specify the metric based on the property. What I would suggest, though, is if you want to look at different ones, just go ahead and add them as long as you're not somebody that's going to be one of those paralysis analysis type people. Having that information on there is going to be helpful to you. So if you have something that's different for a property, go ahead and add it, but just put it at the end. So that way, if you want to see it, you just got to scroll over for it. What is the optimal occupancy? Roger says. That is a great question. And it's very market dependent and seasonal dependent. A lot of people will say, hey, 100% is optimal occupancy, and that is correct if that's what you want to do. You can achieve 100%, but it's going to come at a cost. I think it really depends operationally what you want to achieve, and what you're able to accommodate as well. If you have a cleaning crew that's a little light, you may not want to get up into like that 90th, up into like 90% occupancy because it may put too much on them. Maybe the quality hurts or whatever. I would say if you're in peak season, just as kind of a rule of thumb, and you're not at least 60, 70% occupied, there's a big issue. Like if you're about 50% occupied in peak season, there's a big issue. Strive for 70 or so. Um, Ideally, you get 100% at great, but that neither here or there, kind of hard to achieve. All right. Keep looking through here. Tanya asks, what did you say if the MPI for the next 30 days is 1.5? What needs to be done with pricing? So let's say your MPI is at 1.5%. First thing I would do is look and see, do you have a long booking that came in? If you got lucky and somebody just came in and picked off like 25 nights or something, you may not want to change your pricing at all. But let's say you're getting true short-term rentals and you're at a 1.5. What I would typically say is look at potentially going up slightly on your base price. Not a huge amount, but like maybe 2 to 3%. Or if you look at your calendar and you see that you're only getting weekend bookings and your weekdays aren't getting booked, maybe there's something we could do to just target raising the prices on the weekends for you, which can be done with day of the week adjustments, which is one of the customizations we'll cover tomorrow. Uh, Considering changing bed number and persons allowed. Guess versus head. I get what you're saying. I would say the best thing to go for right now, not knowing the markets you're in, not really knowing a ton of the details, would be the quality of the beds. Having a bunch of beds in there isn't necessarily that beneficial. I would think just from my perspective, not looking at any of the data or anything, having two king beds and a queen bed and maybe a twin, if you have a 3 or 4 bedroom property, is going to be so much more valuable to you in the long run than if you have a 4 bedroom property that has one king bed and 15 bunk beds or something like that. It's not always best to have max occupancy unless you have the space for it. You can't have too many people in too small of a space, make it uncomfortable for them. The more people you allow, the better chance you have of something bad happening, parties, things like that. Not that those are really too concerning until you get towards the last minute. But my personal opinion, this is Kyle talking, not PriceLabs. I would be more focused on the quality of beds in those rooms than so much how many beds you've got. Um, Christine asked, can we cover booking window analytics tomorrow? And I love that question. Absolutely, we will. That was going to be a part of today with our neighborhood data, but we didn't have time to get to it. So we will be covering booking windows, market data, things like that, looking at competitors and things like that. So can you define market for market penetration? Is it the neighborhood or the entire city? That's a really good question. And what we at PriceLabs do is a hyper-local algorithm. So it's not really based on the neighborhood per se. It could be depending on how consolidated that neighborhood is, but basically what the market for market penetration is going to be is whatever that selection is from Base Price Help Tool and those 350 listings, or if you condense it in a little bit more, if you select just 2 bedrooms or whatever it is that fits into that parameter that's helping drive everything else for you. Right. It's always anonymous asking questions like that, so I'm going to skip over anonymous because I don't want to answer anonymous. Which price will be on Airbnb and booking platforms? The price I've put on PriceLabs, the one put on Beds24, or the price I see on Airbnb? It kind of depends. If you see multiple different prices across, like if PriceLabs has one price that we send to Beds24, and then Beds24 has another completely different price, and then it sends it to Airbnb and it's a completely different price, my suggestion, Vlad, is going to be to turn the stuff off starting Airbnb and then Beds24. Without knowing exactly though, it's kind of hard to describe that. So if you will, Vlad, if you'll send over the details to yours to support at pricelabs.co, they'll help you out with that and get it taken care of. Buddy says market penetration index looks cool. Mine is 0.08, 0.5, zero 0.5, 0.6 for the next 30, 60, 100 days. Is the ideal value 1? What do I do now? Ideally, you want to be around 1. I would say maybe like a little bit above. So like think 1.2, 1.3. So you're beating the market in occupancy, but still making good money. If you're the ones that you're at like 0.8, 0.5, 0.6, look at how your bookings are coming in because you are getting them and identify where you're not able to get the bookings if you want to, once you identify those, reach out to support and somebody can help you kind of look at it. What I would say is when you're able to identify that, start making a plan for how you can target those days, whether it be a day of the week adjustment that we'll cover tomorrow, or maybe changing around something like your last minute pricing. You could also look at the far out premium and see if you're getting longer bookings. That could be something to help you with. All right, we're going to get to one more question. Huh, good question. One of them, it's coming from Krishna. It says, "Who's the purple head doll behind you?" And I don't know which purple headed doll there is. You talking about this up here? Let's see. I'll just kind of show you all my. Well, either way, tomorrow I will not have my camera blurred, and you can watch all of my really cool, or see all of my really cool sports memorabilia and cards and Hank Aaron stuff, all that back there. But really sorry for being overtime, guys. Thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully, you're going to be here tomorrow as well. We're going to dive into customizations. We're going to dive into the neighborhood data and everything like that. Y'all are fantastic. Thank you. See ya.